Hello friends. In this session, I'd like to discuss about the concept called tracing module. In the last session, we discussed about the how the correlation ID is useful in tracking the request from end to end. In the tracing module, what we can do is we can log some variables to the our log statement. Hope you remember we discussed about the log statement pattern. Let me open the pattern. See, this is the pattern we configured to log a statement, right? It contains information, the log level and the date, time, and the thread. And after that, in the what is the processor it is getting, executed, and what is the correlation ID. So this is all information as a pattern. And afterwards, the correlation ID in the main. This is the actual message we're going to print, right? We can change the message, but we cannot change the pattern. If you want to change the pattern, you need to go to the log4j.xml file and you need to change the pattern, right? But dynamically we can't change the pattern. But my requirement is I want to log some variables in the pattern. Okay, I want to log some variables. um, so I need to have some flexibility. I want to remove some variables in one message. I want to add some more variables. So how we can do that using the tracing module, that I will explain now with the demonstration. This is a flow. What I'm doing is, in this flow, so there's a request, this actual request coming from the client, right? So there is a client application that's invoking this listener. The URL is this one, and we are passing two query parameters. One is source city and destination city. So I want to log this to source city and destination city. What we need to do is we need to add some logger component. We can log the source and destination. That's not my intention. I want to create something called logging variable. Okay. So I will create a logging variable. I configure the source city in the first logging variable and destination city in the second logging variable. So after that, if I want to execute a logger, so what happens is these two logging variables will come as in a log pattern, right? And afterwards, this is our important thing with correlationary scope. What is with correlationary scope will do? Assume I need to call some other third party API or third party application with some correlation ID. Okay, but my application receives the correlation ID from the client. So client may send some correlation ID. That correlation ID received by the listener. If we client is not sending any correlation ID, here this flow will create a new correlation ID, right? Okay, it creates some new correlation ID. But to call another flow, I need to call with some custom correlation ID, right? Assume we are getting some order over here, order 434. I want to call the second flow with this order as a correlation ID, right? So to send the order as correlation ID, we need to wrap inside with correlation ID, and we can configure the whatever correlation ID you want to send. You can configure over in the scope. So the first second flow, that that is come as a correlation ID. We can print that correlation ID over here. So this is importance of with correlation ID scope. Very very important thing in tracing module, to send a custom correlation ID to the calling applications. Next, remove logging variable. I can remove the logging variable, whatever were logging variable I create in earlier. I can remove those logging variable this using the remove logging variable component, right? Clear logging variables means it clear all the existing logging variables, right? Now in the application, if you see the demonstration, you can able to understand what is this logging variable and how it is useful in the log statement. Let me run the same application. I created the application over here. This is the application and it is in a running mode. Let me hit from the client. So I'm sending the source city Hyderabad, destination city as Mumbai, and I'm hitting this thing. Now if I see the log statement, So the tracing demo, you can see the log statements over here. It will show the first logger. This is first logger, right? So before calling sub app, I can show you the first logger over here. Before calling sub app, and if you observe this logger, right? If you observe this logger, so now in this logger, see, I'm printing the processor, tracing them is my application name, and the flow is second processor. And event means correlation ID. I'm passing EM123, right? So in the from the postman, I'm sending correlation ID as M123, right? And in the flow, it is the third processor, 0123, third processor, right? So therefore, you can able to see the second processor. Sorry. This is zeroth processor, 012, second processor, right? So second processor. Okay. Now, even though I configured the logging variables, I'm not able to see these variables, right? Like, see in this variable, I source city, I'm retrieving from query parameters, source city at the Hyderabad and is a destination city. I'm configuring two query parameters, but I'm not able to print those query parameters as part of the log statement. Now, I want to print those information as part of the log statement. For that, what you need to do, you need to modify the log4j pattern. So let me open the log4j pattern, and you need to add the something called MDC, map diagnosis constant. So right now I removing these two, the processor and event, percentage MDC. Okay. Let me run the application. Let me restart a moment. Meanwhile, I keep the video in pause. So now my application got deployed. Let me open the postman, and let me hit again. And if you see the logs now, see, before calling sub app, and in this log statement, you can able to see the correlation ID M123 and the destination city and processor path, source city in a some structured manner. By adding percentage MDC, you can able to log the variables as well as the processor path and the correlation ID in meaningful way, right? Okay. Now see, after that, what we do is I created two variables, and by logger I can able to see these two variables. And next, I there is one logger over here. What is this logger? Let me open this logger. After request, there is a logger. The correlation ID in the main app. Let me see what is printed. The correlation is the main app is 1 1 2 3. I can able to see the variables, and after this variable, right, after this component, I removed one correlation ID. What correlation? Sorry, I removed the destination city logging variable. Now destination city is Mumbai, right? So in this logger, you cannot able to see the destination city. Now I'm printing only the M123. This is only correlation ID. See here only you can able to source city, and destination city is not visible, right? So this I removed the destination city, and after that I removed all the variables from the constant from the context. So now in the last logger statement, so I'm not able to see my custom logging variables like source city and destination city, right? Okay. So this MDC context and the logging variables are very useful when you have to log different variables when executing the flow, right? This is about the tracing module. And coming to one thing I want to show you here, with the correlation id, right? With the correlation id, if you want to open the correlation id, if you click on the scope, I can configure the correlation, whatever correlation id I want to send to the that's next flow, I can configure over here. So here I'm configuring as payload dot order id, because I am sending order as this payload, as this is the payload. Payload dot order id returns or 434, right? So that I'm sending correlation as a correlation to the next n- to the request, HTTP request. So that HTTP request is I received by this listener, and in this logger, right? In this logger, the correlation ID received in sub app is. Let me show you the what is the correlation ID received from the sub app, right? So here correlation ID received from the sub app is OR 434. Right? Actual the client sent correlation ID is M123, right? Here M123, M123, right? And when the second processor called, the correlation ID become OR 434, right? So that is about this tracing module. Thank you so much.